Hey everybody, welcome to the Last IT podcast in the world. I'm David Wheat from Alt CIO Consulting. He's Darrick Johnson from somewhere in North Austin, Texas, Round Rock space. How are you doing, Darrick?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Summer winding down. Kids are going back to school. A lot of my children who are grown children are related to school districts. They do something, so they're all back to work. I always feel like I missed out on summer.
Yeah, it always does.
I'm like cramming in the last 2 weeks, like a camping trip and something, a Rockies game, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of summer, our banter topic for the day, and we didn't prepare for this at all together, but I was thinking I have in my mind a couple of like ideal summer desserts. Like what's the dessert that just screams to you summer? And I'll set the stage. Let's say it's a wonderful, Hill Country, Texas day, which means the temperature didn't get much above
105. Yeah.
No. It's like 80. It's like 89. Somehow magically, it's 89.
Yeah.
You're with your favorite people. Oh, before we do summer desserts, we got to do hats. So you're wearing your Knights again. That's the Nuclear Knights.
Nuclear Baseball Academy Knights.
Yep.
My son's homeschool baseball team. So
we will bomb you into the Stone Age is their logo. Sorry. That almost kind of works.
It does.
I am wearing a new hat. It's got NVCS up here. That stands for New Vision Charter School. And then it says throws. And it's got a Nighthawk kind of cartoon that's throwing a discus. And that is for the New Vision Charter School track team that my son Daniel coaches. And if you look at the back of it, I'm the sponsor.
Oh, nice.
I'm the athletic. We are now officially an athletic sponsor here at Alt CIO Consulting of a middle school. Not the whole track team, just the shot and discus throwers. That's all I could afford.
I love that logo. That's great.
Yeah, my son made that. He's pretty talented. Okay, terrific. So let's go back to summer desserts. Summer desserts. What's the perfect setting? You're with your favorite people, and this thing is put in front of you, and you say, like, is this the best day of the summer? What is that dessert for you?
I was thinking about that, and I think like I'm generally a chocolate guy. I like Rocky Road ice cream, like brownies, but I think that's more of like a winter coated dessert. Like
I think so.
I think for summer it needs to be kind of a little more sharper, fresher taste. So I was going to like strawberry rhubarb pie and vanilla ice cream. That to me is very quintessential summer.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific. So a little warmed up pie.
Mm-hmm.
The rhubarb comes up it comes up pretty early. Like, you're into rhubarb in June. I'm gonna rattle off some candidates. I've got my prep. So I thought of some like key lime pie for me for some reason. All the citrus fruits. Yeah. Key lime pie. And it's generally served chilled. I think that's important.
Yep.
Let me see. Like this one's kind of what about homemade churned ice cream? Do you ever do that? No.
My controversial opinion, I've had it. I don't really like it.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're a country boy.
It's like not liking motherhood and apple pie or something, but no, I don't know. I love
ice cream. Do you
like
ice cream?
I love ice cream. Like the Culver's frozen custard, kind of the thicker creamer ice cream, gelatos, whatever. The kind of less solid homemade ice cream.
A little bit runny. Kind of sometimes if it's not right, it's almost got a grit to it. Yeah, grainy.
And I know some people love that. There's like a charm to that, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I'll just jump to tell you mine. Mine would be strawberry shortcake.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Now, let me tell. So strawberry shortcake's interesting. You can have multiple different substrates that you put your strawberries on. And like one is angel food cake, one is pound cake. But my mom, this is old school, it was essentially just a biscuit. Like it used to just be a biscuit back in the old days. So that doesn't matter to me. Probably my favorite is maybe angel food cake. Here's the thing. The whipped cream has to have whipped cream.
Yeah.
And it has to be not Cool Whip, which is made from like corn oil. It has to be like made in your kitchen right before you put it on the strawberries. That's my deal.
Actual whipped cream.
Yeah. So that's that to me says summer. And like the minute summer goes, I don't really feel like eating it anymore. I'm into sort of like the spices,
Yeah.
We're into cinnamons. We're into a pumpkin spice season, I guess, for people. All right, good. Here's the final question of the banter segment. Is watermelon a dessert or a side dish?
Ooh, I feel like I want to say dessert, but I feel like in practice it's a side dish. Like I don't feel like I've had dessert when I had watermelon. Like, oh,
Fair.
you're good. You already had watermelon. Like, no, there's still leave some
Yeah.
space there for an actual dessert.
I think I agree with that. Then I thought of this. See if this resonates with you. I don't know if it will. What percentage of watermelon is just eaten right over the kitchen sink?
Oh yeah,
Does that resonate with you?
yeah. Like 35% in our house, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Me too. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but it's
messy. It
right.
takes that out of the equation. You don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Terrific. Awesome. So we both landed on strawberry. I love strawberry rhubarb. I didn't think of that. That's a good one, but both had strawberries in it. Awesome. I'm going to probably have some of that soon just to close out summer the right way.
Yeah,
But
you gotta.
all right, hey, we're going to come back after the musical interlude. And we're going to talk about the factory, the IT department, and Darrick. What's Darrick got to do with all this? We'll tell you about that in 3 little short segments as we come back here on the last IT podcast in the world. Right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world. We're going to talk about these 2 different domains, the factory, where things get manufactured and made, and then the IT department. And there's kind of some barriers between those two, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the factory first. Darrick, you've been to some factories, haven't you?
Yeah,
Walk
yeah.
through them.
Yep,
This can be,
fascinating.
yeah, I love
One of my favorite
manufacturing.
domains to work with.
Totally. If I could, no offense to all my wonderful clients, but if I could have all manufacturing clients, I would. I love to see things get made. And this could be like discrete manufacturing, discrete, like where parts are put together to make something like metallic or wood or plastic,
Mm-hmm.
or process manufacturing, which is more where things are flowing through pipes and vats and kettles and things like that. I think that's a little bit more of our experience. I come back from a
Mm-hmm.
food manufacturing background, but I want to paint a picture of the factory and that domain. And you obviously have machines in there. You have forklifts. You have warehousing. You have machines that are making things. You have workers in uniforms. Typically in the food industry, you wear a
Mm-hmm.
uniform because that way you don't bring your cat hair in your clothes or your dog hair to be equal
Yep.
opportunity um, into the plant. So you change into a uniform, you wear a hairnet, all this stuff. So it's a very different domain. In the food manufacturing space, it's a little bit noisy. It's wet because they're cleaning things with water all the time. And they are trying to automate as much of that they can as things flow through pipes and vessels and kettles, and then eventually get to machines which are doing the packaging side of manufacturing, putting it in tubs and lids and cans and bottles, and then putting it in boxes and boxes on pallets into the cooler or the warehouse, and then out the door. The people who are sort of the IT equivalent in that domain, they're not in IT, are what I would call the plant engineers and the maintenance department. Plant engineers specifically do a form of coding, often in an automated plant. They're very specialty machine coding to tell the machines how long to open valves and how to move things down, the various conveyor belts and the scales, and it's very highly automated, and it is code driven. And so they write code, which sometimes we think is IT, and this is completely different kind of code. It's
Mm-hmm.
not IT code. It's machine instruction code, basically. There's also a network in the plant. There's wires and cables running over Ethernet cables that connect all the machines together and back to servers and back to a control room where they're turning things on and off and monitoring things in real time. There's a lot of tech out in the plant, but the plant is not normally IT's domain.
Right.
The plant is the domain of the plant workers. When IT goes out there, they get mocked and scoffed and laughed at, which is bad. We're going to talk about how to solve this problem a little bit later. But there's some really valuable stuff happening in that plant. There are ingredients, components being transformed into finished goods and being packaged and being converted into, to saleable units. So you've got inventory. Inventory is held in the plant, it's held in the warehouse. Those machines and all those processes out there are using inventory, using it up, moving it around, all these things, which is very, very important to a system we're going to talk about in the IT space in a minute. So plant engineers and their kind of partners, the maintenance team, sort of own that domain. They own those machines. They do tech kind of work, but focused on making machines do work reliably, as efficiently as possible, and get high quality product out ASAP. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Anything to add to that? That was a lot on.
I always kind of envision it like the Few Good Men scene with Jack Nicholson, right? Like when they make mistakes on their software, like things break, things get mixed incorrectly, products get ruined, things get spilled. So it's a very different world than our kind of IT, right? Where the the risks are different.
The risks are digital, let's say.
Yeah, I mean they can see a physical manifestation of a mistake, right? I mean,
Yeah,
completely different. Even if it's not catastrophic, you'll see a line stops, pallets stop moving, things get
for
backed up.
sure.
Like it's a very different world.
Yeah, you brought up an important point. Somewhere in that process of things moving very, very quickly through a factory, there are things that are doing QA checks on. Do they weigh the right amount? Do they they'll run them through x-rays to make sure they don't have little fragments of things in them. There will be people inspecting them and tasting them and doing all these things to them.
Hmm.
And you get a couple settings wrong, or you get a product that's off, or you get a shipment of, like, let's say, containers from a vendor that don't fit in the fixtures correctly or whatever. Suddenly you've got a QA problem, or
Hmm.
you can't ship this stuff anymore because the labels aren't right, or the lids don't close, or the product has something wrong with it. And so their risk is directly connected to the product, and the product is directly connected to the company's bottom line. That's a really
Yeah,
good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like back to that, we're the JAG lawyers that live cozy and near DC, and they're on the front lines, and
But Jack Nicholson, when we make a
the mistake,
mistake, people die. You're
people
not saying
die.
people die. People
Yeah,
die when you're a Marine at Guantanamo
yeah.
Bay,
But when we make
but not
mistakes,
in the factory.
pallets break, product gets ruined.
Yeah, and one thing I should add, that's what they care about. In the
Mhm.
domain of the factory, in the plant, that's what they get rewarded for. That's what they get punished for. That's what they care about.
Right.
And, like, they don't care so much about some IT things, which we're going to talk about. Like, is the inventory accurate? They don't care.
Right.
Kind of. They don't care
IT
much.
slash accounting things. I think they're right. That's the
Fair,
corollary that we're always tight to.
fair. Yep. Um, and they're good at what they do, and they're
Hmm.
fantastically smart, and they care a lot about their domain. So there's some value, and there's kind of a wall there, like we said. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about IT, the corporate IT department, what they care about, and what they want from the plant. We'll come back right after this break and talk about that a little bit more. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world. We talked about the factory and their domain and their rulers and the plant engineers over there that rule all that technology over there. Now we switch to the corporate IT department, kind of cozy up in the corporate office. Maybe it literally, sometimes it's a building that's like one building removed from the factory.
Right.
It's got carpeting in it as opposed to the factory. It's all cement over there. People with non-factory work clothes on, and that IT department is concerned about, let's break it into two halves: infrastructure, things like the networks that run throughout the buildings and attached to various things, printers and in the plant, maybe machines. We'll get to that in a minute. They've got firewalls that are keeping all the bad guys out and away from all their servers and away from all their knowledge and things like that. So kind of on the hardware side, they've got infrastructure people. Then they've got ERP people, the system of record. This is what a lot of people call an accounting system. I kind of hate the term accounting system. I understand it.
But it's
It's
so
doing
much
so much more than accounting.
right.
Everything flows into an accounting transaction, I suppose, but it's trying to keep track of inventory. How much do we have? It's doing the planning for the factory. So it is like, hey, what are we going to run? What production orders and what products are we going to run on Tuesday so that we can make all these orders we have coming in? We know the orders are in the ERP system from customers. That's the demand side. They know that. They've
Hmm.
got the master data of the products that say, like, how long does it take to make it? What does it cost? Who do we source it from? What's the lead time to order it? They've got purchasing people that are making sure all those things are arriving on the receiving dock at the right time so that the factory people can have what they need to
Right.
keep those machines running. You start to see the synergy here of why these groups need to work together. But in that system of record, it's also got, like, how much of each individual thing that I need to make products do I have on hand, so they can run these big planning calculators and say, like, do you have enough? Do I need to order some? Do I need to expedite the order? You can't run it for 3 days because you don't have it. So inventory accuracy and timeliness is huge in manufacturing. I mean, I said huge pretty emphatically there. I'll say it again. It's huge and underestimated sometimes. So you want your inventory in as close to real time as possible
Yep.
and as accurate as possible. Make sense? So what else so you've got the system of record.
Yeah.
It wants all these things. Those things are kind of walled off in the domain of the plant. We'll talk about before we automate them. I'll tell you how things work, which is clunky.
Right. And I think one thing, on the IT side with ERP or other software systems, we think a lot about validation of disallowing transactions that we don't want to happen, right? We think about, you can't enter that purchase order because we're not buying from that vendor anymore. You can't do that after such and such a date. This is outside of a tolerance. That's the world we operate in, because we're talking about documenting transactions before they happen, trying to, especially if processes are running correctly, right? And you're using ERP, and no, you can't submit that purchase order. No, you can't adjust that inventory because it hasn't been approved, or whatever your business rules are being enforced. They're enforced a lot of times through the ERP like that. When you start to talk about the factory, it's going to be different, because you're going to talk about things that have happened, whether you like them or not. And
Right.
you talk about how that impacts it.
Yeah. Terrific. I think this is I made this point earlier. I'm going to make it again. The purpose of that ERP is not solely to make sure the accounting books are correct. It's literally to make sure that factory can run.
Right.
It's got all this 30, 40 years of calculator called MRP. MRP means, hey, what do you need to buy from vendors to have it here in time to keep running and meeting orders on time? That's all in
That's a
the
great
ERP
point,
engine.
because
Yeah,
I mean, it's in the name ERP, but I sure do that. We think of that as just accounting. We think of that as just numbers, but it is the operations of the entire organization.
it really is. You have operations people that are running those solutions. So now we and so the corporate IT department back in this domain, they're really good at knowing how to create those transactions on the ERP system accurately, how to create a production order or a work order, how to maintain master data, how to record inventory accurately, the importance of it. And they know probably a little bit about the ways you can sort of send data back and forth electronically between systems. We're going to talk about that's you in a minute. They're really, really good at that. And they would love to, let's say, have a relationship with the plant, because the plant has all of that data in real time, if that
Right.
makes sense. So the problem is, and we'll talk about this briefly, and then we'll pivot to the third segment, like how do we get these groups together? The problem is the plant, as we kind of alluded to, is not incentivized by their leadership to work with the IT department to give them what they need, which is essentially data in real time from the factory to do things we'll talk about in a minute. And IT often isn't really super friendly with the factory. Like if you're just sitting up on the third floor of your corporate IT department, and you're never like walking the plant, you're not building relationships out there, you don't know the names of people,
Right.
unless you look at the name tag on their uniform. You can wish all you want that you guys could, sort of like plug in your two domains together and start having them talk to each other, but it's going to be very difficult. And we'll talk about this. You need a leadership vision to make that happen.
I
So
mean, you talked about that. We talked about, like, with remote work, the hallway conversations, and like a lot of times those physically don't really happen as much, right? Because they like you said, they are sometimes in a separate building. They might be in a separate, they might be in a completely different location, but at least in a separate area, there are those barriers like you talked about. If you want to go in the plant, even if you are in the same building, you've got to put on, safety gear. You got to clean up. So you just aren't going in there routinely unless you mean to, right? You just don't have those organic relationships that built up. And so it is sort of a wall.
it is. Yeah, literally and
Yeah.
metaphorically. We're gonna take a quick break and come back with the third sort of block of this segment, and because there is a way that you can work to get these two domains of knowledge and technology and signal, I would call it, like data moving across wires, to be and people like you just alluded to, being much more tightly integrated, and the benefit that it can provide in efficiency and accuracy and all the things we talked about on the other side of the break, when we talk about how does Darrick fit into all this? Like, how can Darrick, a guy like Darrick, smoking hot, and I mean, like, in skills. Not that you're not attractive, Darrick, but I mean mostly in your skills. Enterprise architect, with a really thoughtful kind of collaboration between the factory and IT, sort of break down these walls. Let's take a break and we'll talk about that when we come right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pod. And we've talked about the factory and that domain and how it's kind of walled off. They're doing a great job over there. They're good at what they do, and they're incentivized to do that. And then we've got IT department. They're pretty good at what they do too, but there's a barrier between them. And Darrick, you and I together have worked on a project that helped sort of like integrate these domains. Do you want to sort of take the lead and sort of frame out that project and how it was built and how we work through that? And I'll add color as we go.
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. It was we did really a couple of them. I think there's 2 or 3 permutations of it. And it was really to resolve that to that data. We were dealing with a plant that had a lot of factory automation. So there's data there, right? It's not manual systems where the data only exists on paper. There is automation, there is databases, there is IT there. But there was no connection to the ERP, and so I think there was paper in between, right? Like the old integration was sheets of paper and a clipboard and walking somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I forgot to lead in with that, but thank you for that reminder. So before the automation, before we sort of wired these two domains together, not literally wired, but with an integration, here's what happened. The factory would be recording data literally on a clipboard. They would be writing on a clipboard 3 shifts a day, some of them with really terrible handwriting. And then the next morning, someone from the office would walk over to the plant, kind of collect the clipboard. Some things were in Excel, some were on a clipboard. They kind of collect that and sort of crack their knuckles and start manually typing hundreds of inventory transactions that had taken place in the factory the day before that were not recorded in any system of record except for paper or Excel. And they would record them into the ERP. So I used up this much product. I received this much product into the dock. And these are making inventory levels go up and down. Sometimes that person goes on vacation.
Yeah.
Or is sick for 2 days. And so the inventory accuracy was whatever the operator remembered to write down,
right,
which is not great.
And could write down accurately and legibly.
It's not great, whether they cared or not. And sometimes these are hourly people that are temps that might work there for 4 weeks and then move on. Sometimes they don't care.
Sometimes the care level is not super high.
It's not super high. So you had inaccurate and delayed inventory, like by 2 or 3 or 4, even 5 days, or even like lost in the mail, like never got recorded kind of stuff. So just drilling. Thank you. Pick up where you were, but there was a process. It was entirely paper and manual because that's representing the wall between the two domains, factory and IT.
And I think even when we got involved, there was factory automation. So there was starting to be where the data did exist digitally. That paper wasn't the only thing, but that was still there was still no data or digital integration between the two systems. So they were, separate networks, separate firewalls. There were, no connection between those. So, which was really frustrating. I think when we started to discover that there was good data available in these plant automation systems, and it was in a potentially usable format. So we got involved with that. Had some really good partners on the plant automation side, those maintenance engineers, right?
Yeah. Quickly, you made a really good point. They were capturing data digitally on the factory domain because they wanted to use it for their purposes. They were doing reporting or whatever. They weren't thinking of automate, but it was great that they were digitally capturing some stuff from machines, storing it in a database, just to go back to your point, and it was sitting there, and it was made for their use. And you're going to talk about this in a minute. It wasn't quite ready for prime time.
Right.
Didn't just magically mean it could just be jammed in the ERP, but keep going with that. I wanted to drill in on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, I think that discovery that data was there and that they had a few levers to pull to maybe put that data into a SQL database in a format that we could deal with, because that factory talk systems they were using, it wasn't going to have a native integration, right? And I think what we were discovering is those aren't just there and out of box, and those systems are heavily customized. And so, yeah, so where we got involved was finding that partner on the maintenance plant side that could put that data with some collaboration of, can you write this event out in this format? Can you capture these data points of it? I need to know how many gallons. I need to know which bin it was in if we're doing bin level tracking, and really record all those transactions just as, one record per transaction. So we start to build that up. And then where we came in was the ERP did have some good hooks to integrate with. It had web services, but the factory system wasn't going to be able to talk to that. So we wrote our own custom application to sit in the middle there to map to those web services and really bridge that gap and be that adapter that could go read from something that the plant could write to, which the SQL database. And it wasn't 100% real time. We did polling, right? Because we have to go look in the database and see what's there. We didn't have hooks that far
Yeah,
into
but
the factory
like
system.
15-minute polling.
Yeah,
We might have started an hour, then 30, then 15.
We're going from several sheets walk across the building once a day to 10 to 15 minutes after a transaction happens. It's read, processed, and sent over to the other system. Orchestrating multiple web services. So a lot of times what a transaction is on the plant side might be 3 or 4 transactions on the ERP side.
Right.
So
Good point. I forgot that.
to consolidate that, there's a lot of orchestration there of, I think one of the examples was, one event was a purchase order. The purchase order had to be opened and refreshed. And then we had to do an output journal. We had to post the output journal. We had to do a consumption journal. We had to post the consumption journal. And so, 4 or 5 steps as far as ERP is concerned, one event on the plan system. And so being able to sort of bridge that gap between the two systems and really the two worlds, let that work. And, I think we talked about a big component of this that you were real spearhead for is having a good console. I think that was, we started to mention that earlier, but when you're building an ERP and you're building rules around like what a valid output journal is, you can say, no, you didn't do it right. This isn't valid when the plant's documenting what really did happen. So I don't care if you like it. We use this much milk. We use this much water. And whether you think we should have or not, we did. It's gone. So that makes that remediation process a lot different. You can't just, you still need those rules. You can't just make your ERP not have rules that are enforced, but you do have to have a way to say, this something came in, it kind of violated the rules. What are we going to do? Was the plant system recording something incorrectly? You said you consumed 100,000 gallons. That's not physically possible. That's good. Your ERP is a good backstop in making sure bad data doesn't get in. But sometimes the rules are stricter than what really happens in the wild. And so being able to say, no, that's a valid transaction. We need to figure out how to get that in there and, change whatever we need to change to make it get across. But yeah, having that console where we could sort of monitor that progress, monitor the effectiveness of integration. And like you mentioned, 30,000 transactions a year or something like that going through. You can see the errors, you can document the errors, and you can see how much, you can kind of validate what you did and see, yeah, we saved a lot of work. We had a lot of transactions that came in that didn't need any attention. And the ones that did, you're always trying to figure out what broke. Is that something that we just need to fix systemically so that doesn't happen anymore?
Yeah. Let me recap some things you said because it's really important. When it comes to software, I'm a buy guy. If you can buy a really good tool, I think that's better than building. But sometimes you have to build. To your point, there isn't like a native get your plant data into your ERP, like a thing you can go buy from the marketplace that was born to do that. If there is, you'll have to heavily customize it or configure it. We wrote our own. We wrote a thing that said, I'm going to go read the factory database. To your point earlier, we went to the plant engineers and said, hey, can you store this data a little bit differently? Because it's going to be now used for these things. And to your point about, they don't know what a purchase order receipt really is over in the plant. I mean, like they cognitively know. They certainly don't know what an output journal is or a consumption journal, which are on the production order or work order side. They have no idea. They don't need to know.
Right.
So we just said, like, just capture your data like this. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
And so we had leadership support, and we mentioned that briefly. So they were game. They were really good partners, by the way.
Yeah.
And we talked about kind of the grouchy domain, get out of the plant people. They were really fantastic partners. They were on board with like, yeah, this sounds great. And it was kind of cool to them, a little bit sexy, even oddly.
Mhm.
So step one, they did that. We wrote our own middleware. It ran on a server, and it sort of poked through the plant firewall, which is a separate from your outside firewall, got data on a pole, brought it back. And I'm going to stop here and talk because I love this. This console meant that a user, not IT, was not monitoring these transactions. The same user that used to enter them with paper and spreadsheet now had a console watching the automation work, seeing any errors pop up, retrying them maybe, but or maybe coming to IT and saying, why didn't this work? And they'd tell. So the console where you built, which was custom, had like error flags and visuals and how are things running? Is everything running? Is it not running? Sidebar, you don't want an integration. You can have a silent integration that nobody can see anything on the screen. I hate those.
Yeah.
You need a console that says like green, red, on, off, error, no, yes, no. And we gave the user control of some things of the console that you built. And then, like you said, we handled the ERP side that the plant doesn't care about. And reemphasizing, we made 30,000 transactions a year become zero touch. The factory captured the data from machines. You pulled it out through your application. It went directly into the ERP in almost near real time. And a human being did not lose their job because 30,000 transactions were automated. I can't emphasize enough, what this person got to do was brain work
Right.
instead of rote typing work,
Right.
added value work,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And it really got to be like more of a systems approach where when you did have an error, if you had a human error, you would just say, stop doing that. Stop miskeying that. When you have a system, we have an error that would come in through that. We found things. I think that, we had a pretty good Paretoing of errors in that first couple months we had it,
Yeah.
where we found things. We found mismatches between validation rules. We found, sequences where the plant would write the data differently than we thought. And so to go from, to get our error rate lower and lower and lower, where that attention again is just drops and drops and drops, so that the console is there as it should need less and less attention as you go forward, right? It's always there to prove it's working. It's always there because stuff always happens. But yeah, to really keep reducing that error count and making your data more reliable and yeah, letting that person do what they were onboarded to do, which is knowledge work. It's not data entry.
Someone maybe, I'm going to drive in it like the, you're right. We paraded, we had errors. We said, oh, wow. Okay. So we might need to have like a retry loop or something like, and we slowly drove the reliability of the integration, or we drove the reliability up, the failure rate down. Let me give you an example. It was a cloud ERP. It was not running on a server in the factory. So what if this data, because the internet was down or the ERP was doing a cloud-based upgrade overnight and was not reachable? What if it tried to send it data and said, "Want want, can't reach the ERP"? I think we put like a clunky, like wait 5 minutes and try again, because
Yeah.
and if it maybe tried it 3 or 4 times, and so all that engineering, which I really appreciated that you put into it, over time as we learned. And that's maybe, let's jump into the lessons learned, and we'll kind of back into it. One of them is like, start with an integration that's not perfect and then make it better as you go. We just talked about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, shipping is a feature. Getting it started, getting that automation, getting visibility to what's really happening is how you start getting it better. Like if you wait till it's going to be perfect, you're never going to do it. But if you can do it, put visibility to it so you can learn, you can build confidence, you can see where those mismatches are and fix them,
Yeah.
you make good headway.
Here's another one I just thought of. If you are on a modern ERP, especially a cloud-based ERP, you have what are called the API hooks, or the APIs. That is the way to get data into the system via a backdoor, system to system, as opposed to typing it in. And I find a lot of companies in the mid-market are not leveraging that layer or that side of the ERP. If they can't type it in and see it, they're not thinking about that. Make sure you've got someone thinking about how, like, you guys, we can get this data in, follows all the business rules. It follows it's just like a human typing it in.
Yeah.
If you're out of stock, it won't let you do it. So be aware of that whole technical integration side of your systems. That's typically called an API, is another one.
Yeah.
What else would you say is a thing you took away from that we learned?
I would say learning who your partners are. Like there are, I think, part of what made that successful, right, was We talked about the maintenance engineers on the plant side. Also on the ERP side, I think there was, for the most part, we were able to use out of box APIs, but there's a few things that weren't quite suited for that. I think that's getting better and better, right? As APIs
Yeah.
mature. But that's always an option too. If this is valuable and your APIs aren't quite doing what you need on the ERP side, there is a chance for some light customization so that you're not blocked by that. We had just a couple places where we needed to do that, and that made the difference, right? That got over those couple of hurdles that made it work all the way through. I think making transactions post, and so they needed one less piece of attention on the other side was one example of that.
Yeah. Let me tell you a quick one. In the instance that we were in, like the summary is like, hey, IT, make friends with the plant. Be friends with the plant. Find a way, to build trust. And in that particular company's instance, they had a daily shift stand up at 9 a.m. where the leaders of the plant gathered in their uniforms in the plant, talk about the day's shifts, the day's issues, what they were working on. And one or two people from IT would go and join that stand up, and they were welcomed, they were invited. And just that little like presence of being there once a day and having your face seen and being friendly with them, I think laid the groundwork for the work that you and I ended up doing with the ERP team, frankly,
Yeah.
And I'll just tack on that really quickly. Leadership, like if your head of operations doesn't want anything to do with IT, you're doomed. Like, if they're not interested in automating transactions because you just want to they get incentivized to make food or widgets or whatever, that's bad. You got to have leadership that's enlightened and wants all those things for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that, but like in your experience, we talk about how the ERP gets aligned and associated with accounting. A lot of that's organizational, right? That a lot of times that's under the governance of IT's either directly or tangentially related to like a CFO. It is an operations thing, and having that connection and treating IT as a partner with operations too would be huge. The other thing I think that we don't want to lose is that we all talked to here about how the plant can benefit IT and by getting us that data and helping us get that, and we can benefit the ERP. The benefit goes the other way too, right? We started getting some data over there to the plant to improve their tooling, right? So we could show active purchase orders in their system. We could on some different processes. So it can be it's always mutually beneficial, but it can be a very concretely mutually beneficial thing where we can get and highlight data that's available in the ERP, make it available in the plant system so that's aligned, it's synchronized, that they're not dealing with a 3-day-old copy of what a product is like. I know we did some cool stuff with like capturing logos from the image to make that real user friendly for packagers, and they could see what they were seeing in the plant. And you can make custom tools right for them that are actually beneficial to the plant side as well.
Really great point. The more you start doing this, the more you will find ways that you can help each other, is kind of your
Right.
point.
Yeah.
The more you work collaboratively together and you have success, the more deeper and wider and broader you can go on that. Probably my final thing I'll say, Derek, and you're welcome to the last word, and then we'll say, hey, what'd you learn on the podcast? I've said this a lot. Integration is automation. Like when you can make systems talk to each other, you are automating processes. We talk a lot on this pod about labor shortages and the increasing future of finding qualified labor and how that automation is an imperative and integration is a supporting part of automation. You can run your factory with fewer people and you can have more people do more the more you are integrating your systems, in this case, the factory to ERP and ERP back, to your point. But the sooner you do that, because it took us a while to build this. It took us a while to work out the kinks. It wasn't a 60-day project by any stretch. It was longer than that. But it's an imperative to keep looking for these ways to let systems talk to systems and let people do value-added brain work instead of mindless keyboard work.
I think for me, one thing I would just have as a question for you, an observation is like, this wasn't yesterday, but it wasn't that long ago either. We're used to so much automation already in so many other areas of IT. And like we talked about there being a wall, but are you still seeing this being kind of a lagging area of automation that even with
I am.
APIs?
Thank you. It's a terrific question. I've got new clients and they have the same scenario we just described without the automation and integration. They're doing spreadsheets and clipboards, and they are now multiple years removed from when we last did our first project. We've done a couple, and I will say sometimes the barrier is the plant isn't already digital like it was when we got to our plant. They've got to go get their database, and all their networking and stuff like that, figured out. So that's their long lead barrier. And I tell them that when I make strategies, I say like, start working on this now. Get your plant networked, get your server infrastructure, get your database infrastructure, start capturing data. Then you can start to do what we're talking about. Continuing problem. Yeah.
And I would say too, even if the way your plant is structured doesn't necessitate plant automation software, that's again where custom software can help you out there. So I've been a part of projects like that where making a touchscreen friendly, easy to use human interface to put on your plant, put on tablets, get something in their hands to get that data digitized as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You can integrate with that. So even if you don't need a factory automation software, you can get that integration tighter, and you're not building an ERP for the plant. You're not building a 38 field form. You know what your system needs. You can get them to, touch through a couple of buttons, enter 2 or 3 values. And a lot of times you can get most transactions recorded that way. And it's easy and it's more intuitive than what you'd have on your ERP.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Terrific. All right. Let's pivot to the last part of our segment. What did you learn on the podcast today? Want to go first?
Yeah. I mean, learned, let's see, so much about desserts, but I did learn about, we got fan mail for the podcast. So
in the green room before the pod, we got pop-ups.
We have a pop-up card from one of our fans here.
Yeah. You open it up and it says, for the listeners, the last IT podcast in the world. And it's even got the green
pop art logo, like spot on.
Fantastic. So, first ever fan art, also first ever fan pop-up art. Love it so much.
Yeah. So thanks to our fans.
Yeah, we love you, fans. Well, you know what I learned? What I remembered was, like, it is really, I'm so glad I had you on speed dial for this factory integration project. And this is now officially a love fest, but like we crushed that project together.
It was really
that
fun.
was a raging success story, and it was incredibly fun. Like you said, challenging. It took us months and lots of pain to figure it out and get it working and get signal going the right way. But I didn't learn it, but I remembered, like, I have always appreciated that I have DJ from Round Rock, Texas in my cell phone in case I need to talk to him.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're currently committed to work. I know that's off the table now, but this was in a different era.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and always enjoy side hustles like that. So
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to the fans for the pop art, and shout out to those fans that were listening today on the last IT podcast in the world. The factory, the IT department, kumbaya, 1,000 points of light, bring them together, integrate them, get those transactions flowing. Automation is an imperative. Get rolling. Contact me at AltCIO Consulting if you would like some advice on how to make that happen. Ooh, the rare marketing pitch on the pod.
I like it.
I saved it for like the 49th minute. That's not good marketing. All right. Hey, over and out. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I'll see you later, Darrick. Thanks for the time.
Thanks.
All right. Sweet.